everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Performance Cafe. And so today we are picking up a little thread from last week that we want to bring through, and that was where we spoke about entitlement. And entitlement actually puts us in a situation where we negate others. We try and exclude them. We make them less than, and we make ourselves more than. And an interesting concept of this is that what we must just watch out for when we are holding people accountable is that we don't do the same thing. So if someone comes to me and they're acting entitled, the way I deal with them mustn't show my entitlement. I think a really good example of this was 15, 16-year-old me going to my mother and saying, I want a motorbike. And I should have one because my friends have one and because you love me and I'm your daughter. And my mother went, no. And I said, why? And she said, because I said so. So I think that's a good example of shutting down entitlement with entitlement, right? But it's not really a positive way of doing it. So the interesting thing, and today really is about more, it's an interesting bridge, but today's really about just more than just entitlement. It's around psychological safety. And so we can use it on entitled individuals, but others as well. But also, it's about how do we bring psychological safety and accountability together. So let's take a look. Firstly, what does psychological safety even mean? So often when we say the word psychology, people go, well, I'm going to send you to HR. You probably need like depression meds or something. Actually, that's not the case at all. So psychological safety in teams refers to an environment where individuals can feel safe to take interpersonal risks. This means that I can come to you, I can speak my mind, I can express maybe an idea, a thought. If I'm not clear, I can ask a question, I can admit mistakes, and I can do all of these things without fearing the negative consequence. Now, if we remember from a couple of videos ago, we spoke a lot about what does accountability mean? It means holding someone responsible for their work, and they need to show ownership. But what we're trying to get rid of is this concept of accountability as if you don't do it, I have the right to punish you. So when teams cultivate this psychological safety, it has a positive impact on various aspects of teamwork, accountability, productivity, collaboration, all of it. So I want to bring an interesting TED Talk to your attention. It is by Amy Edmondson. Now, I must tell you, I do love Amy Cuddy, who's someone else. She is the introvert lady, and check out her stuff on TED. She's phenomenal. But Amy Edmondson has a TED Talk called Building a Psychologically Safe Workplace, and she's really given a lot of thought to this over the years. And she starts off this very beautiful TED Talk, and she says, she gives 3 examples. I'm only going to give you one of a nurse in a hospital who notices that a patient's medication might be slightly high. Then thinks maybe she should bring it to the attention of the doctor. But then she thinks, hold on, the last time I did this, he shut me down. And as she says, no one wants to seem incompetent, incapable, negative, or lazy. So am I being incompetent? Am I being incapable? Am I just being negative? What does the nurse do? She doesn't call the doctor. And what we see here is an example of an organizational space or a team space that's lacking that psychological safety. So the next thing that I want to touch on is when we take a look at that psychological safety, so many people will go, okay, so maybe something went wrong. The doctor comes back and he fights with his nurse not for not, making this clear. The interesting thing around it is that a lot of people go, should I now softly around this topic, should I be kind? Another one of our videos, go and check it out. Should I mention this? Should I not? Should I come down really hard? People's lives are at stake with medications and stuff. And so should I be nice, kind, compassionate, or should there be accountability? And what I really love about what Amy Edmondson says is that she actually says, hold on, it's actually two options on a chart. So the one option is accountability, and the other one is organizational safety. And it makes such sense. Think about it. If you're in an organization where there is no accountability and no safety, well, I think basically you're in space, right? If you're in an organization where there's a lot of safety but no accountability, well, then we're talking about our kindness video again. And this is a place where it's lovely to work, but nothing ever gets done. So watch out for sustainability. In an organization where there's lots of accountability, but no organizational safety, well, people don't perform because it's not safe to say when something's going to go wrong. And then, of course, the fourth quadrant, which is the ideal one, where there's high accountability, it is enabled by this organizational safety. And that's where we want to get everyone. So how do we go about this? Because so often we raised, and I particularly was raised in a corporate setting that was quite, and I don't want to say it was masculine, but it had a masculine energy. So it was all about strategy and numbers and Excel spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. So the more feminine energy, the softer, energy that draws in, that nurtures, that cares, definitely wasn't there. So we've got no examples how to do this. So I would like to give you 5 ways that you can take a look at improving the organizational safety at your office. So the first one is encouraging open communication. So that example of the nurse who didn't want to speak up, she was not encouraged to have open communication because the last time I did this, I was shut down, right? So teams that promote this atmosphere of transparency, this atmosphere of open communication, they really can feel comfortable about putting up their hand and saying, I don't get it, or can I just double check with you that this is correct? Have I missed something? This fosters not only psychological safety, but because those things get voiced, get aired, get out there, it not only helps managers understand what this person needs, thinks, and maybe where there might be gaps in education even, but it also enables them to take responsibility for their actions, where team members can show progress, they can hold themselves accountable. So building a psychologically safe workplace really is about people are able to speak up. And what I really love is in the same TED talk, I'm going to digress for a second just because it's such a great talk. She does research to see, what is the role of psychological safety in improving performance. And she goes and she starts doing this research and she goes, okay, so obviously people who talk more make less mistakes. And then she does the research only to find out that the people who were talking more were actually making more mistakes. And she went, well, this isn't good. Sends in another assistant researcher with the next follow-up. And the long and the short of this amazing point is that people who share will share that they make mistakes, but because they're comfortable to share, they can so quickly react to fix it. And secondly, learn from that mistake, and everyone learns from this mistake because there's no shame. She said it was, she was quite a young researcher at that point in time, and she said that those findings initially were a bit scary, but it is, we do need to speak to know what's going on in people's heads. Number 2, active listening. So active listening is about really giving full attention to others, seeking to understand where they're coming from, their perspectives, and then showing empathy. And showing empathy is such an interesting one because it's not about sitting and crying with them. It's about sitting there and saying, you know what, while you're in this space, I'm going to sit here and be there for you. I'm not going to solve the problem necessarily, but I'm here with you. And when employees and team members feel that they genuinely are heard and understood, it enhances psychological safety. And we see this, as you guys know, I'm a strength coach. We often see this in our work with strengths, where something will happen and normally it would cause conflict and, someone's behavior would cause conflict or someone would blow up. What we find is once we've done strengths and people are self-aware and others in the team are aware of their strengths, It's easier to say, do you know that when you aren't punctual, it really, really puts me under strain because of XYZ strength. Or, when you always pitch up 15 minutes early, actually that doesn't work for me because my strengths are. And so what happens is it's not a blaming thing. It's how do we get our diversity of strengths, our diversity of thoughts and being, and we build a bridge so that we all understand each other. Right, so active listening also promotes accountability as it enables individuals to take in feedback, learn from it, and make necessary adjustments. Because you see, if you actively listen to your team, they will do the same to you. And that's one thing. For all these aspects I'm talking about, it's not about, the team needs to go and do this. We spoke in the past, I think, 1 or 2 sessions. Sorry, we've done so many of these videos, I get lost. But in one of the previous videos, we actually spoke about how the manager should be the role model. The team lead should be the role model. Number 3, a respectful and non-judgmental feedback method is absolutely fabulous for this. So remember the problems we had initially with accountability being negative? Well, it comes back here now as well with feedback, because accountability and feedback kind of go hand in hand. Now, what happens is if I give you feedback whereby I judge you, whereby I tell you you are, what did I say, incompetent, incapable, lazy, or negative, if I'm speaking that way to you, there's no way to take that feedback and go, wow, that's an excellent point. I didn't think of that. Let me go and take a look at it. But when that communication is respectful, then that person has the psychological safety to go, duh, why didn't I think of that? Of course. Hold on. Let me go and do it. Let me go and make that change. So there is not only an improvement immediately because there's no conflict, there's no barrier to getting this done, and then there's learning. Right? So when feedback is constructive, it's about growth and improvement and not blame or criticism. And so again, here we go. I can immediately take accountability for that thing that happened and I can go and fix it. And we encourage to learn from the mistakes and contribute to the overall success of the team. Number 4, embracing diversity and inclusivity. And it's so interesting in South Africa, whenever we speak about diversity and inclusivity, we're often speaking about genders and races and ages and stuff. But I always like to think of a diversity of strengths, a diversity of thought even, because irrespective of who I am, what my background is, my age or my gender, my thinking is something that can be isolated as something that's unique and that can bring something new. Teams that value, teams that value inclusivity and create like this environment where individuals feel accepted, respected, and that's irrespective of background experiences or ideas. When they feel that value and they feel valued for who they are, this perspective they bring, it boosts psychological safety and it encourages them to take ownership of work and of decisions because they can bring themselves. So often we used to hear specifically in the past, why don't people use more initiative? Well, they can't use initiative if this environment isn't good for them or doesn't allow them to speak up. Sorry, let me just have a swallow of this lovely coffee because I want to choke now. I must remember to fake a cough next time for the lovely coffee. Number 5 is supportive leadership. Now, we've actually got a whole episode on supportive leadership, but what we say there is that leaders demonstrate support, empathy, and yes, vulnerability. They create an environment where team members feel safe to speak up and to be accountable. I was sitting with one of my friends the other day, CEO of a national company, and she said, we've got this problem. And that client is also not helping because they're so difficult. And I said to her, well, does the team know that you think the client is being difficult? And she goes, no, I don't want to be unprofessional. But the problem here is if you don't show that vulnerability, You can't empathize with them properly. You can't say to them, "Oh, I agree with you. The client is being difficult, but you know what? Let's find a way to make it work." It's not a dismissive thing. It's just you sharing you. Walking into the office and going, "Oh, guys, if we could today, I just have stayed at home. Or my little one is ill. Or, I tripped over the cat," or whatever. Share a little bit of yourself. And you don't have to tell your whole backstory. Just a little bit of vulnerability also helps. Right. So then you're fostering a culture of trust, because if you trust people to say this to them, then they will trust you to come to you with their ideas, their thoughts, and their feelings. And that enhances collaboration, and collaboration is always good for accountability. Right. And then the last one, learning from failures. I sort of have touched on this. I think I've touched on it a couple of times through all of our videos. But when we learn from failures, we embrace failures as opportunities for growth rather than blame. And I love it. In Amy's video, Amy Edmondson's video, she says, "Is it a problem or is it a puzzle?" If it's a problem, we get stuck in it. If it's a problem, it causes stress. But have you ever built a really good puzzle? Wasn't it fun solving what essentially is a 1,000-piece problem? So I think that's, to me, such a beautiful way of saying, is this really a problem or not? And in my intentional accountability model, I also take a look at, when someone does something wrong, can we just sort of calibrate? Is this a minor hiccup? Is it a puzzle? Is it a problem? Is it the end of the world? It's very often we just zoot over to the end of the world option. So when team members perceive that failure is actually a learning experience, they are more likely to take ownership again. They are more likely to share their failures and work towards improvements without fear of retribution. And again, we're back in a situation where all of these options help us to to have great accountability and also to share the learnings. Right. So by fostering these behaviors, we find that teams can really elevate their accountability because there is so much psychological safety in their environment. And so I hope that you have learned something from this. Please leave comments if you have. We have these, we stream these, we record these every Wednesday at 9:30, that's South African Standard Time, or GMT +2. And then also we share it across all of our major platforms on my website, performforward.com. We also share these as blogs. So please go and take a look at all of those. And then I think I'm ready for the next step.